Hello, welcome to Voicetv Nigeria. My name is Mohammed Jinadu, as usual, and we are bringing you a program today that actually focus more on education. A few days ago, there was a program that took place at the International Conference Center that centered on educating a lot of Nigerians towards how to mitigate gender-based violence, how to actually enhance our reading culture, and see how far we can go towards nation building. I have two wonderful guests here who were part of this program. One was an organizer, and another person was a participant that actually has this deep knowledge of what reading culture, which is part of an education, can actually help to enhance our critical thinking and see how we can apply all of these lessons, all of these teachings, all of these thoughts towards probably proper ideas to build our nation. I'll start with the beautiful lady on my left, Miss Amina Mohammed. She is a biochemistry major and an advocate for GBV and SRHR. She'll be explaining those to us. And she's a poet, she's a spoken words person, she is a published writer and a reader, an avid one. And she cooks and loves football. For the lady, you're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Thank you. And on my right is another gentleman like me, because men are always gentle. His name is Khalifa Aliu Adamu. He's a lawyer. He has love for law, policy, and art. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I will start with the gentleman. I'm going to be gender biased right now.
Okay.
Mala Khalifa, um, education, reading culture. I think from the 2000 down to this point, the generation of youth have actually lost it. And it has actually affected the way our thought processes. Because when you hear conversation on social media, you realize that it's a far cry from what should have been towards nation building. Please enlighten us. Education, reading culture. How did you lose it?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be here. I represent a forum which basically harnesses young creative minds in art and literature.
All right.
It's called Caliphate Arts and Literary Forum.
Okay.
And here, what we do, because of the gap we realized in the region culture, it's kind of vanished.
Okay.
We decided to set this forum up so that we will be able to bring young creative minds from the early age to inculcate the reading culture into them and also allow them to see the relevance of reading because a society that has a very low level of literacy is a society that is headed for doom because most advanced countries you realize that they have a large number of readers. The knowledge is in the books, but nowadays we hardly read. People majorly just read to pass exams, one, and for certain purposes. But then when you start to read extensively, when you read to understand, you have a capacity for critical thinking. You will be able to sort things out, solve. In fact, you'll be able to analyze problems and propose solutions to them because you have vast knowledge. So, what we do at that forum is we have a book club and we train children and young adults to inculcate the habit of reading. It is very important because statistics has shown that Nigeria is among the countries which have the lowest number of people who read. Statistically, it has been shown that way. So, what says what does that say about the country? Where are we headed?
So, mom, you
Yes.
really heard. He said some things, and I picked. He said thought process. He said prefer solutions. He said analyze issues. We've always been crying bad leadership, bad leadership. Do you think the lack of reading culture, the lack of critical thinking has affected the level of leaders we've had?
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I love to think when you say reading, you're not just talking about. I pick up a Harlequin book that is all romance and flowers,
Okay.
and I flip through the pages. I just read till the end, and I just know the storyline. And I know, okay, that's a great book about a guy that did this, that did that. When I hear people say reading, I want to believe it goes beyond just picking up a book. It means when I pick up this book, I am able to process what I find in the book, the lines, the sentences that make the whole book. Now, you would agree with me that English language is quite complex. So I like to think any person who is able to read properly, like that is understand the context of what you're reading, has got an extraordinary mind compared to the person who can't. Excuse me. That being said, if I'm able to read, definitely, it's going to develop my mind. Because then I find, for example, I find new words I'm not familiar with. I go to the dictionary, I check, what does this mean? Okay, that's an add to my vocabulary. Then I see thought processes that happen within the book context of what I am reading. I'm able to process, okay, so this happens, this, that. You are able to actually process things better if you read. Now that's where the critical thinking comes in. You cannot compare somebody who doesn't read and somebody who reads. Because I know my siblings, I have about 3 siblings. Two of them are very, very avid readers. They love to read. And the other isn't. It's just a football person. When those two who are avid readers converse with you, you are pleased to be associated with them. You can see the depth of their knowledge. And I think this comes from reading. And when I say reading, I don't just mean reading romantic
Massive.
books, Harlequin. There are plenty of books that are wisdom filled that we could read. And I believe if we are able to actually pick up this book and read from a very tender age, I love to think the reason why I'm an avid reader is because at a very, very young age, I started reading. My dad is quite scholar kind of person. So he has a library. I pick books that are way ahead, like
I
books that are
understand.
quite
We
way
ahead of
ahead
time.
at that time. And I read. And I remember I read the book Social Speeches. Till today, that's why I feel like that contributed to me not having phobia facing a crowd. No matter how large a crowd is, I am able to read. Sorry, I'm able to stand before them and talk
And send your
precisely
message.
and be intentional about my message, the message which I pass. So I love to think reading builds the mind. It definitely does. Though it depends on the things you read. There are plenty of literature out there which are not actually healthy. However, there are very healthy ones. If you read this book at a very tender age, it builds your mind. Because then I hear a word, okay, for example, I hear a word and I'm like, this word, I've seen it in a book. I read it in so book, and it takes you back to
Kind of
what you
a
check was
little
the
bit of
meaning of.
research and you
So by the
understand.
time you face crowd, you talk, you are more informed. Why? Because you read. You read. I'm not saying reading novels are bad. It's okay. It's good too, because then novels have scenarios painted in them, and these scenarios, one way or the other, relate to real life activities. So reading is very, very important as far as critical thinking is concerned. And then people who think critically, forgotten who made this quote. He said, and I quote, when you stop reading, you stop living. People who read live 1,000 lifetime. Accurate.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, especially when you find a book that is quite interesting, where the author actually knows what they are doing and they are putting in thoughts. They are being intentional about putting in those thoughts in their books. Where by the time you read, it's a complete universe outside the one we currently live in. So I think reading and critical thinking are two very important things that actually go hand in hand, if you ask me. If you read, definitely you cannot compare people who read with people who do not read in terms of thought processing.
Man,
I hope I answered the
it's,
question.
it's all good. Madam Khalifa, here is this. In that program, Bolaji Abdullahi, the former minister, actually made mention of his fear and picked the middle school gap post to university or advanced colleges. He mentioned those were his most concern. And I said, as a person, we actually had this little chat and said, foundation should be. Do you think the leaders we have actually miss the priority where they should focus? Because without the cause, you can't get the effect right. You can't get the solution right. Our foundation, how can we better it from where it is right now to what we want it to be?
Okay, it is very, very important to start from the scratch. because statistics shows that only 4 out of 10 primary school students are able to read for comprehension.
Mm.
So someone who is not
Wow.
able to read and comprehend at that level and gets to junior secondary school where he needs to start treating topics like integrated science
Yeah.
and introductory technology and the rest, which are far more complex than
Complex
what
than that,
you've been
yes.
Mm.
taught in primary school. How does he comprehend that? Which means he's just there in class. So it's very important to start from primary school. There needs to be policies in our educational system where these these reading activities must be inculcated from the root.
Definitely.
There needs to be a rehabilitation of the teachers who are teaching these students
Mm.
because, to tell you the truth, even the teachers who we are talking about that they should train these kids on how to read don't read themselves.
That's bad.
That's
You've
terrible.
actually lost it.
Because if your students see you reading, if your pupils see you reading, they aside from their parents, you are the next person they look up to because you're the one who they see every day. But when they see you reading, they will be able to inculcate their habit to be able to pick up a book. So when you tell them to do this, pick this book up, read this book up, it will be much more easier.
Mhm.
So there needs to be policies from the primary school level where there needs to be book club and reading clubs. There needs to be quiz competitions, spelling bees, where people will be ignited to read.
And
A
encouraged.
lot of people have this mindset, but there is no platform.
Wow. Um,
Can I add to
yes,
that?
ma'am.
Okay.
Talking about the importance of catching these children young. I'm not saying the catch them young in a superficial sense where everybody is saying catch them young, but actually nobody's running, nobody's chasing nobody, and nobody's trying to catch nothing. I think like he rightly pointed out, there is a very, very, very high need for us to actually rehabilitate our teachers. If you look into the education sector now, most teachers are there because other fields don't offer them job opportunities.
Wow.
Teaching is
More like
like
it's a secondary
contingency
option
plan,
Yes,
plan.
yes,
exactly.
for when things don't work out for you. Say, okay, man, I'm just gonna be a teacher.
So
Quite
there's loss of passion. There's loss of
there is lots
there's
of
no
Exactly.
passion,
intent.
That's true.
exactly, and then somebody who is not trained to teach cannot teach. Let's be very honest to ourselves. You could be good in your field, very, very excellent. A first class student might not be able to
Impact
impact
knowledge.
knowledge because teaching is an art, and it's an art, and it's a very, very, very integral one. We need
It's
to take very,
deliberate.
very
You're right.
serious.
It's
We
a
need to be
deliberate thing.
deliberate about making sure our teachers are good to go, because like he said, most youngins actually look up to their teachers more than they even do their parents. Okay, for example, I had a niece who came back home, and I think I forgotten the teacher told them a particular name of an animal, and then my her mom was like, "No, that's not the name." She said, "No, auntie said." She's trying. She's even on a strata. She's placing what her auntie said over
The
what her
knowledge
mother
because
said
that's the teacher
because that's her teacher. That she spent most of her days with her because you go to school seven
and that's her
thirty
specialty actually.
exactly. But
Teacher.
then she was just her mom was like, why are you? She said no. Auntie said, which means if we correct these teachers, will be able to inculcate this reading culture back into her. Because if they are young and you catch them at this right age and you tell them that it's very important to read, very, very important to read, trust me, we are going to get it right.
Now on the last one, Malam Khalifa, directly to the parents, because parents are the smallest unit of a society. What do we do as parents to directly change the curve?
The parents need to be deliberate about teaching these kids the habit of reading.
Okay,
One, from home.
okay.
There needs to be libraries at home. You need to buy the kids more books rather than giving them to social
Social media.
media and doing stuff that is not necessary. The schools, the private schools, need to enforce the teaching, the reading activities, come up with programs. The public schools also need to do that. This is where the government comes in and brings in their policies, the headmasters, the headmistress, the principals. There needs to be a change. So the parents need to be deliberate about it. when the parents are deliberate about it, I'm sure
Through
that
the PTAs, they should
yes,
be able
of
to
course,
speak
through the
as
Parents Teachers
with one
Association,
voice
Yeah.
when they speak with one voice, I'm sure it will hold.
to adjust the
Of
system.
course.
Ma'am,
Definitely.
your
Yes.
last word, ma'am.
Okay, as far as reading culture is concerned, I just want to say that if you want to live 1,000 life, of course, if we know we have just one life, but if you want
It's
to make
interesting.
it as interesting as it can be, because as an average reader, I want to let you know today that reading has to be one of the best things to ever happen to planet Earth. So make reading not just a hobby, make it a way of life. Because when you read, you are able to lead because it develops your mind and makes you a far much better person. And again, please, we need to for example, you go for overall best student gets 10,000 naira as gifts.
That's actually
These are one
awesome.
of the things we don't have time. These are one of the things that actually diminish the reading culture.
Demotivate. It rather
As
motivates. It
it,
actually doesn't
Exactly.
encourage you.
yes,
Because
even as much as I don't think we should read because we want gratification and other things, you should read for yourself. But at least this things actually encourage children and people. Say, oh, if you read, you get a certain reward, and then as you are getting to grow up and see, oh, there's a certain reward, then you realize that oh, apart from the reward, reading actually helps me, makes me a better person. I speak with more authority because I am more informed. I get more informed because I read.
thank you very much, viewers. I think we'll still come back here with these two wonderful people to actually extensively discuss this because we want to understand what reading does to our people and our nation. We realize that because we've lost a lot of knowledge put in books, we are unable to actually provide proper solutions because we have no better analysis and we know Nigeria is bedeviled with data collection. We
Mhm.
actually are far behind when it comes to research and data collection. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you, wonderful gentleman and the
Thank you
beautiful
for having
lady.
me.
We
Thank you
would
for
love to
having
have
me.
both of you here again
Sure,
on a
sure.
more extensive timeline. It's wonderful having you join us this morning. I wish you the best of day and the week ahead.